Good morning and welcome to this, our first meeting. To better understand who St. Paul was, it is worthwhile first to get a sense of the times and places in which he lived. We must first understand what it meant for Paul to have lived when by then Rome had become, for a few years, an empire. That is what we will try to find out in this first conversation. Let us first look at some dates. St. Paul is estimated to have been born between AD 5 and 8 in Tarsus, Cilicia, thus younger by a few years than Jesus, and to have died about 66 to 67 in Rome. He thus lived about 60 years. He was born in the time of Octavian Augustus, the first Roman emperor, who was followed by Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius, and is thought to have died during the persecution of Christians carried out by Nero after the burning of Rome in 64. We're 60 years marked by the Pax Romana that Octavian Augustus, who had been a mediocre general but a very able politician, had managed to establish after decades of civil war. The spread of Christianity, thanks in particular to Paul's preaching, was made possible precisely because he could move within the boundaries of an empire that could provide a series of solid guarantees. What guarantees? Well, first of all, peace. There were no internal wars or invasions by hostile peoples in the territories that were frequented by Paul. And then safety in travel, both by sea, where there was limited danger of piratical actions, and by land, thanks to the efficient network of roads built by the Romans. The Mediterranean, called Mare Nostrum by the Romans, constituted a vein system that kept the entire empire alive. The transportation of goods, the movement of people, the exchange of letters were at that time greatly facilitated. From Alexandria in Egypt, which was the granary of Rome, to Pozzuoli, it took only 2 weeks of navigation. The same can be said from Caesarea, the city chosen by the Romans to rule Palestine. Another example from Tarragona, Spain, where fine wine came from, to Ostia, the port of Rome, it took only 5 days. What was traded along the Mediterranean? Mostly foodstuffs, luxury goods for Roman patricians and exotic beasts for use in amphitheaters. Why especially food installments? It may seem strange to us who live 2,000 years after the events we are about to narrate. And to understand it, we have to drop into a world where agriculture had very low productivity. Doing necessarily rough calculations, to feed a city like Rome of 700,000 inhabitants required 350 times the size of the cultivable land of Rome at the time. It is clear, therefore, that only continuous transportation of foodstuffs by sea could ensure the survival of a city of that size. But the roads built by the Romans also had both strategic and commercial importance. 2 roads, the Via Egnatia and the Via Appia, will be particularly important for our narrative. The Via Egnatia started from Apollonia, an ancient city in Albania, which could be reached from Italy by sea from Brindisi, and then traveled throughout Greece, and from there could be accessed to the cities of the Middle East. It was also used by St. Paul when he decided to extend his apostolate into Europe. In fact, both the cities of Philippi and Thessalonica were visited by Paul and are cities that are right on the Ignatian Way. Centuries later, it would be extended to Constantinople when Constantine read this city to be the new capital of the empire. The other road of interest for our story is the Appian Way, the oldest Roman consular road. which Paul traveled from Pozzuoli, where he disembarked on his last journey to Rome. Finally, we must not forget that the ancients, unlike us, were great walkers. It is estimated that they could walk as much as 30 kilometers in a day. Also important was legal certainty. When Paul was accused several times by his brethren of the Jewish faith of being a troublemaker, the Roman prefects always treated him justly, not least because he was a Roman citizen, and moreover, they never wanted to mix in what they rightly believed were only religious quarrels. It is estimated that about 60 million people lived in the then known world, which corresponds to less than Italy alone, or France has today. The most populous city was, of course, Rome, the capital of the empire. It is estimated to have had about 700,000 inhabitants in the time of Emperor Augustus, and will reach 1 million in the late empire. These are values that will be reached only by 19th century London. All the most populous cities of the time were located in the eastern Mediterranean area. Ephesus, with its 200,000 inhabitants, which was capital of the Roman province of Asia, then Antioch, 150,000, capital of the province of Syria, which included the prefecture of Judea. Then came Corinth, with 100,000 inhabitants, the capital of the province of Achaia. These three cities, Ephesus, Antioch, and Corinth, would prove central, as we shall see, to Paul's preaching. Finally, we must mention Alexandria, the most populous after Rome, with its 400,000 inhabitants, the main source of grain supplies for the capital. And Athens? Athens was now a center of only 30,000 inhabitants, without strategic importance, but respected for art and philosophy. Roman scions were going to complete their education in Athens. The average age at that time was 39 for men, and the height about 160 centimeters. If I were to meet with Paul today, he would reach that height. For women, the average age was reduced to 32. All of antiquity was characterized by a numerical superiority of men over women, and not only because of early deaths due to childbirth, but because infanticide was legal, and those who suffered were mainly women. Christianity brought about, in this respect, a profound transformation in common sensibilities. In the light of Jesus' teachings, infanticide, adultery, abortion were seen in all their gravity, and many scholars speculate that in the early days of Christianity, a high percentage of women adhered to the new faith. We cannot conclude this quick overview of the Roman Empire without talking about slavery, because slavery was the backbone of the economy. In Paul's time, we see a significant spike in the use of slaves as a result of the empire's more recent conquests. It is estimated that slaves constituted at least 30% of the population and were employed primarily in the management of the estates, in the mines, or the most fortunate went into service in the villas of the patricians. A slave was considered a property of the master and including his children. And this master could do whatever he wanted with him, even kill him. Slavery would be a theme that Paul addressed in his letters in a totally new spirit, as we shall see, inspired by the Christian faith. Well, in this, our first meeting, we have focused on the Roman Empire. In the next one, we will get a little closer to what was St. Paul's own world, that is the Middle East, and particularly the territory of Judea.